Welcome back to Cjam Reviews. My name is Cjam, and today we're going to be having a spoiler discussion about the new Netflix movie, The Harder They Fall. So I really enjoy this movie, and I've really been looking forward to it. Netflix has really been good as of late. Well, they've been awesome all this year, all throughout the pandemic. They've been keeping us entertained, and Netflix really led me astray with the trailers for this movie because based on the trailers, I thought that Nat Love was the villain and Idris Elba's Rufus Buck was the hero, and that is not the case. So well done, Netflix. And I also want to commend Netflix for sticking to their commitment for releasing a movie every single week in 2021. When the year started, they announced it, or maybe a little bit before the year started, they announced that they'll be releasing a movie every week this year. And people were like, what? That's a huge commitment. And they have been doing that. Every single week, we can expect a brand new movie from Netflix. And this is just another entry in that list that they have promised us. And as I said, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I love old time movies. I love movies set in the past, and this is one of those. And this movie, there's a little note that comes up at the beginning that says the events of this movie are fictional, but the people in it are real individuals, and that just makes it even more interesting for me personally. I really enjoyed that. And just a little warning, if you haven't seen it yet, it is rated R. It's an R-rated movie. There's a lot of violence in there. There's a lot of swearing in there, and the violence has a lot of gore with it. So just a warning to you guys if you haven't seen it yet, or if you may have a problem with that kind of stuff. And if you want to know what a movie is like before you see it, you can hop over to imdb.com. That's the Internet Movie Database. And you can see the ratings for a particular movie that you're interested in watching. You can also see the descriptions for particular scenes in that movie. If you want to have a family get together to watch a movie, or any kind of watch party with your friends, you can just browse through the descriptions of the movie to see what the content in that movie is. Obviously, if you're not interested in spoiler related stuff, because most of the IMDb stuff have spoilers in them, right? So that's just a cool little tip that I wanted to share with you guys. And another thing that I really liked in this is the music, the cues, all the song choices. There was a heavy Jamaican influence in this movie. Jamaican influence, and the music, the baritone Levy, everything. It was just so good. Even the song from Cuffee at the end while the credits were rolling, that was just so good. So the music really made this movie more enjoyable for me as a Jamaican. I cannot lie, the music is so good. So kudos to Netflix again for giving it that little flavor, and the music was just so fitting with the scenes that were being depicted. So Netflix really did good with this one, and I really liked it. And then the cinematography, as usual, I'm a videographer, and I really enjoyed the cinematography here. As I mentioned, I love old time movies that are set in the past, and they really had some creative angles here. When they were, after they robbed the bank, remember this is a spoiler review, right? After they robbed the bank and the camera was pointing up at them and they were looking down at the money, and it was just like this wide shot with all of the characters from the Nat Love gang. That was really cool. When Idris Elba, Rufus Buck, when he came out of his cell on the train, and there was the wide shot, and then they kind of warped the camera a little bit after he took his breath of fresh air as a free man. That was really cool. And I really like the close-ups they had in here too. That's really cool. I really liked it. I really enjoyed this movie, and I cannot stress that enough. It'd be interesting to know if Netflix actually built the town of Redwood, the setting. I wonder if they actually built that, or that's an actual town that looks like that, right? Because it's obviously set back in the day. So it looked really good. It looked really believable. A lot of stuff took place outside where you can see everything. So I'm really interested to know if they actually built that entire town, because that would have cost a lot of money, but it looked real good. I actually believed like we were back there back in the day, right? So now let's jump into some of my character breakdowns. All right, and I really liked all of the characters here. You believe their stories, right? The storytelling in this movie is really good. You believe their stories, you believe their causes. I mean, no matter how skewed it is, you believe them, right? You're there with them in the story. You're not hearing their story or seeing their story play out on screen. You're like, that's hard to believe. You can actually believe it. You're right there with them. And the first set of characters that I want to talk about are the battalion of soldiers. I'm just looking over on my notes here because I don't want to miss anything. The battalion of soldiers on the train who were holding Rufus captive in that cell on the train. And when Trudy, Regina King's character, read the letter that they got from the general, saying that because of the misdeeds of the battalion that was on the train, he wanted them dead, right? And I was like, how terrible can you be that your own general, your own commanding officer in the army wants to get rid of you, and it doesn't matter how you're disposed of. It doesn't matter who he has to hire, he just wants you gone. Like, and then when Regina King says that they wiped out an entire town, like women and children included, that is just terrible. So I felt for them when the gang hijacked the train, but then as I realized why the train was being hijacked and why they were ordered to be killed, and I was like, oh, okay, I am not exactly sorry for you guys, but but it was a pretty intense what they did, and I guess they're just reaping their just reward, right? So next, I just want to make a quick note about the Crimson Hood gang. The last guy who they spoke to, the one they didn't kill, Daman Wayans Jr. I didn't even know it was Daman Wayans Jr. until I saw him. I was like, this guy looks a lot like Daman Wayans. And then I Googled him and he was actually his son. He looked so much like his father. He sounds like his father and acts like his father. It was just crazy to me. So I thought I'd mention that. And then Bill Pickett, played by Edi Gathegi, he was in X-Men First Class. He was like good friends with Jimmy. I really believed their relationship here. You know, he really looked out for Jimmy, because remember when Jimmy was wasting time with the Crimson Hood guys, you know, trying to draw to see who was quicker with them. You know, he's actually talking to them rather than just doing the job that they're there to do. Pickett was telling him that, hey, this is grown-up stuff, right? We could actually die, so you have to take this seriously. And he was right. They really did have to take it seriously because they're in a dangerous line of work, right? They're gang members. So that's nothing to really take for a joke. And then Wiley Escoe, the sheriff, you know, played by Deon Cole, I recognize him from what do you call it? Blackish. He was okay, but he seems so corrupt as a sheriff. I mean, maybe he and Rufus has some history. Maybe Rufus is the one who sent him to that side, but he was just corrupt. It's obvious. I mean, especially hearing his backstory, like he bought his way to being a sheriff, right? And then what was cool though, what I liked was when he was eating the steak and he was like talking, like Rufus was actually sitting there in front of him, like, and he had the rasp in his voice, like, and he was pointing the fork all serious and all tough. And then when the camera panned back and then they showed us that he was actually sitting in an empty room, just like rehearsing his tough guy speech. That was really, really funny. And then when Rufus hit him with a gun, when he was just gun butting him, I was like, he was giving him the business. But he knew Rufus was gonna be the one to like really do him bad. So he definitely saw that coming, right? When he said, don't nobody stop him from getting what's coming to him, you know, later down in the film. So his character was already on a destructive path from the beginning. Him and Rufus has such a long history. It was not going to end well for him, and it didn't. And then next I want to talk about RJ Cyler's character, Jim Bekcwourth. He was so funny. I really liked him. He came in Me, Earl and the Dying Girl, everything, and he was the Blue Ranger in Power Rangers that came out a few years ago, you know. I think that year, was it 2017? I think that year in 2017 he came out in like a few movies. That was the best year for him so far. I think he came out in like 5 movies, if I'm not mistaken. But that was a good year for him. And he's only 26, and he's one of my, well, I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite actors, but I like him in the movies that he comes in. And he's really cool. He's a likable actor, and every time he would laugh at someone's joke here in the movie, I thought it was just so funny. It made me laugh as well. It was so funny. Like when Cuffee said to him that she's seen someone who is faster at drawing, and he says, "Who?" And she says, "I looked in the mirror," and he just like laughed out. Ha! I thought that was so funny. So I have to commend him. He really owned his role, and I knew something bad was going to happen to him because he was a little bit too reckless and a little bit too overzealous. And as Pickett said, remember, he was telling him that this is real stuff, they could really die doing this, and so said, so done. It was just really sad, you know, especially when he was trying to draw out Cherokee Bill when they went to save Mary. And then they were telling him that no, it's not the time. I was like, when I saw him doing it, I was like, what is he doing? And then Nat Love was looking at him like, yo, where are you? No, it's not the time. So I really felt bad for him, but I knew that something bad was probably going to happen to him because of his personality. And obviously he's the young one of the bunch. He's the baby of the bunch. But I mean, that's the kind of lifestyle they're living, right? And then we have Bass Reeves, the Marshal, played by Delroy Lindo. Everybody knows Delroy Lindo. He's a living legend in the African American community. I thought it was so funny at the end when Mary asked him, "Do you think people are going to believe that he's dead?" And then he says, "I am the law, Miss Mary. If I say a man dead, he dead." That was so funny. I laughed so hard. And just the way he said it with his accent. But I liked him. He was the voice of reason. He was like everybody's father, pointing them in the right direction. And then when he said to Jim, when he was like stitching something and Jim was like practicing his gun tricks, and then he said to him, "All them tricks get you killed." So I was like, oh. And then it hit even harder when he actually got killed from trying to do all that fancy stuff. So yeah, he was definitely the voice of reason. He was definitely our father figure, and I actually believed him in that role. So I think he was well casted here. I really liked him, really liked him here in this. And then I want to talk about Cuffee, or Cuffee, played by Danielle Deadwyler. This is the first time I've seen her in anything, but she was very good. And when I googled her, she looks nothing like the character that she's playing. she looked so rough and tough in the movie, but she actually looks very different in real life. So I have to give her that. She really got lost in this role, and that's good. That's good. I thought it was so funny when she had on the red dress in the bank, and then before she got in the bank and she was trying to come off the horse, but because there's so much fabric, so much fabric that makes up that dress, it was just hilarious. And then when she was in the bank and trying to draw her weapon, and she was like pulling up the fabric from the dress, trying to get to her weapon, it was just taking a minute and a half. That was so good. And I think back to Cherokee Bill. Let me just touch on Cherokee Bill. Cherokee Bill when he killed Pickett by shooting him in the back. I think she was beginning to really, like everybody, as she was a part of the gang, right? So I think it hit Cuffee real hard when Cherokee Bill actually shot Pickett in the back, because remember, Jim was saying that he heard that the reason why Cherokee Bill was known as the fastest quick draw was because he actually shoots people in the back when they're drawing in the West, they walk away from each other and then they turn and right? But when we all saw that the way he killed Jim and he actually shot Pickett in his back. That wasn't cool. So it really hit her hard. And yeah, I think she came around, because when we just met her, she was really rough and tough. You know, she was the bouncer at the club. So she really came around. I didn't really care for the character at first, but then as we saw her more, so I really like what they did with her character. Really, really good, right? And then on the note of Cherokee Bill, played by Lakeith Stanfield, you may know Lakeith Stanfield from Get Out. He was in Knives Out 2 years ago, I believe, and he was in Judas and the Black Messiah recently, and he was also in Snowden. He's one of my favorite actors, like no joke, right? 2017 and 2015 was a good year for him in his acting career. He came out in 7 movies in both those years. Can you imagine being in 7 movies in a year? 7? Do you know how much work that is? So I have to commend him, and he's just 30 years old, and in just those 2 years, he's already in 14 movies. Like, what a resume he's building, right? And I want him to get like a huge opportunity, or like a bigger opportunity to come like in the DCU or in the MCU, you know, the Marvel movies, because he's a really, really good actor. And as I said, he's one of my favorite, like, right? But I really, really didn't like him in this. I thought he was a voice of reason. I mean, he kind of was, but he, you know, he's double crossing ways, but I'd like to see more of his Cherokee background, his indigenous background, right? Because when he shot Pickett in the back, and Pickett was like clawing after him, trying to like hold on to him, and he said, no, don't do that. And then he actually spoke in Cherokee, that native language, to Pickett. So I'd love to see, you know, more of his Cherokee background. How did he get affiliated with being a Cherokee? Like more of that, because when I heard his name Cherokee Bill, I was wondering if he was actually a native, and so I'd really like to see more of that. Maybe we won't, but I just thought it was pretty cool that his name was Cherokee Bill and he actually spoke Cherokee, right? And he died as cheating and as conniving as he was. The song that played when he died, as he stepped out of the salon, as he stepped out of the saloon, the song that was playing, it hit so hard. And then how they showed him falling to the ground with all the gore, it was just so intense. I was like, as I mentioned, as bad as he was, as cheating as he was, the way they played the scene of him dying, that hit so hard. I actually felt sorry for him. But yeah, he did a lot of bad things, but I did feel sorry for him, and that's good that you can actually feel bad for a villain, right? And at that moment when Cherokee Bill died, Rufus, Idris Elba's character, he knew they were all going to lose, because that was like his last line of defense, right? And as I mentioned, Cuffee versus well, not as I mentioned, I was talking about Cuffee and Cherokee Bill earlier, but Cuffee versus Cherokee Bill right at the end in the final battle, right? When they were to bring back the money and they didn't, and then the big shootout started. I think it was so cool that Cherokee Bill was shooting at Cuffee and vice versa, and then in the end, it was Cuffee versus Cherokee Bill again for the draw, and you know, Cuffee actually beat him to that draw. So I think that was kind of poetic, right? And then I want to talk about Zazie Beetz. She's in Deadpool 2, as you know. She's in The Joker. She was in Geostorm. And I actually liked her relationship with Nat Love. You could tell that there was history between them, right? She didn't want to live the gang life anymore, obviously. But Nat chose the gang life, so they couldn't be together anymore. So that was pretty interesting. And she is what we would call a nowadays club owner, right? Because as she mentioned, it looks like she really goes around and buys saloons, right? Buys these clubs. So I thought that was pretty interesting in how it really contrasted the world of today, that you still have people today who owns clubs, right? They're in the nightclub business, right? And there's a real picture. The character that she plays here, she plays Mary, right? Stagecoach Mary. There is a real picture of the person in history who is called Stagecoach Mary. As I mentioned, these characters are real people, but the story is fictional, as they put up at the front of the movie, right? And the person she played, Mary Fields, in real life, there's a picture of her with a rifle, just as Zazie Beetz was carrying in this movie. So that was very, very cool to see. And one of the things I didn't like about Mary is when she was fighting Trudy, you know, at the end of the movie, when they were like, they threw down their guns and they just wanted to like punch it out. I was like, when she hit her with the butt of the gun, her rifle, why would Mary not make sure that Trudy was dead? You have to make sure. The stakes are too high. When I saw that she just hit her and she fell on the ground and she just walked away, left her, I was like, she is not dead. She is definitely coming back. And then at the end of the movie, when they were all riding off into the sunset, and then they showed us somebody looking at them riding off on the little bluff, on the little hill, in the black skirt with the hat as well. That is definitely Trudy. She is definitely coming back. So we can look forward to a part 2, you know, to a sequel of The Harder They Fall, because Trudy is definitely coming back for revenge. She was in the exact same black dress that she had on while she was fighting. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for Regina King. So as I mentioned, Regina King, the very first scene, the very first action scenes that we saw her in while they were on the train, I was like, okay, this woman, Regina King, is not to be messed with in this movie. Trudy means business. And I'd love to see a little bit more of a relationship with Rufus, because obviously they have some kind of backstory. When she asked him, how could he have left the town to Wiley, you know, the sheriff, when he got caught? He left it to Wiley because somebody had to oversee the town, right? I think she felt that she was more capable of leading than Wiley, as she was, as we saw, but that just showed me that there's a relationship between her and Buck, you know, Rufus, Idris Elba's character. So I'd love to see more of their backstory, how they got where they are today, whether they're brother and sister, whether they're husband and wife, whatever it is. I'd really love to see more of that. Maybe we'll get a flashback in part 2 if they do end up making part 2. And when she said, I thought her line was so funny and so true. When she said, when the townsman was saying to her that, you're putting us between a rock and a hard place, right? When she was telling him what the extortion fees are going to be going forward. And she said, a rock and a hard place is just a Monday for us, or something like that. That was so cool, so profound, because it was so true, right? So yeah, I really liked her character. She was really a strong woman, right? She definitely led the gang while Rufus was away, while he was in jail. So she's definitely a very strong character, a very strong leader, and I really like that for Regina King, right? And now let's talk about Rufus, Idris Elba. Idris Elba is like easily in my top 5 actors. I really like Idris Elba. He's a living legend as well, for sure. Absolutely, Idris Elba is a living legend, right? And he was also in another cowboy movie this year called Concrete Cowboy. And there was an article about him that I saw that said 2021 is the year that he's playing cowboys. So I thought that was so funny. And his entrance from his cell on the train, how cool was that? You know, when he said everybody except the one who can drive the train, and then he was putting on his hat, and then the firing started. And he was just walking through and nothing was touching him. That was so cool. That's probably the coolest entrance so far that I've seen this year. That was so cool. And the opening scene of the movie, when he visited the family, which turned out to be his family, or his father, right, and his father's new family. I was wondering why he killed the mother. He didn't need to kill the mother. Clearly the mother doesn't know what's going on, because she was asking her husband like what's going on, right? And he was telling her that it's fine, but it wasn't fine. So I didn't think he needed to kill the mother. That made me kind of feel negative towards his character. I didn't know if he could be reasoned with, you know, if he's beyond reason. But I couldn't feel sorry for him. And he knew he must have known that Nat would not stop hunting him because he killed his mother, and just because he killed his entire family. And just as though he couldn't stop hunting his father until he found him and then got to take him out, he actually created Nat. He made Nat into the outlaw, into the killer that he is today because he killed his family, right? And speaking about family, when Nat finally confronted him, right? Nat Love, when he finally confronted him at the end of the movie, I did not see that coming, right? I definitely did not see that coming. When I saw Idris Elba sitting there by the little side table thing, like sipping, I was wondering when he started asking him about his father. I was like, why would he ask him about his father? If it's just a random killing, why would he care? And then it clicked to me. I wonder if they're related, if they're brothers or something. And then it turned out they're brothers. Like, what a twist. But here's where I lost all respect for Rufus. When he killed that townsman that said he wasn't going to pay their extortion fee, I definitely lost all respect for that character at that point in time. And to me, there was no redemption for him because, like, he's beyond reason. He's becoming a tyrannical ruler. He's out of control. He's just killing as he sees fit, right? So I knew at that moment that he was beyond redemption. There's no saving him. And then when him and Nat Love eventually clash, I knew one of them had to go. There was no, like, the two of them can't exist in the same world, right? Like, two bulls can't rule in one pen. And then now let's talk about Nat Love, Jonathan Majors. He's from Lovecraft Country. That's an HBO Max series. He also came in the Loki season finale. He was barely in that. He was in it for he was in the entire finale, but he wasn't in the entire season, right? And everybody loved him. From just the season finale, everybody loved him. So he's gonna be a huge movie star, no doubt, right? Every line he delivered, I believed it. His accent, the way he carried himself, I believed he was a cowboy. I knew he was comedic from the Loki season finale because of how he played that version of his character. But seeing him here, the way he delivered his lines, I was actually saying to myself that he is so funny. Like, I knew, especially in the bank, when they were robbing the bank, right? When he had his two guns out, and then the other guy, like a security guard in the bank, came with his gun and pointed at him, and he said, "Hey, Blue Eyes." That was so funny. And then he said, he's telling the same Blue Eyes guy that you're scared, right? Your hands are shaking. And then he said, "You'll miss." Obviously, because his hands is shaking, he's gonna miss. And then he said that he won't. I thought that was so funny. And then when he said exhale, and that was a cool callback because that's what he told Wiley. No, that's what he told the Crimson Gang member earlier when they caught him. He told him to exhale. But that was so funny. And then there was a powerful scene because in the same bank, he said, Jonathan Majors, Nat Love, said to the white gentlemen who were in one corner of the bank, he was saying to them that times have changed, ain't they? And that was so powerful, especially how they depicted it. Well, with all the white gentlemen over here in the corner, they were looking all scared and worried at this African-American guy over here by himself in this corner. It's just an interesting contrast to know, history, things of the past, slavery, colonization and all of that. Oh, the story, right? So being the black man here with all the white gentlemen over here looking scared, I think that was a very powerful depiction, and Jonathan Majors delivered that line very well. Even though it was kind of played for comedy, I think it was really, really cool and just showed how good of an actor Jonathan Majors is, and I think he's gonna be one of my favorite actors now, like going forward. After seeing him here and after seeing him in Loki, I really he's so good. And when he was fighting Rufus, when they were having that, well, not fighting, when they were having that encounter in the final scene of the movie, well, not the final scene, but in the last segment of the movie, when Rufus was telling him the story, and when he realized that where the story was going, and that he started crying because he was crying at the realization that this was actually his brother. And then he was saying that he's lying, and then the teardrop was coming on his face, that, and then Idris Elba is talking and his eyes are all watering. I'm like, jeez, like these guys are killing me right now. This is so intense. And Idris Elba is already a legend, and the way Jonathan Majors just bounced off of Idris Elba, and how the two of them just like collaborated to make that scene emotionally heavy as it was, is that was a really, really good 5 minutes. And that scene alone for me just told me that Jonathan Majors has a bright, like an even brighter future, right, in this business of show business. And when he was firing the gun, even though the bullets were out, when Rufus was on the floor and he was still firing the gun, but he was out of bullets, but just the emotion he was feeling, he's still firing because he's so angry and upset and confused. So I thought that was just so well done. And then when they were all singing the song right before they attacked Redwood, right, they were all singing this song, and then Upon My Return is the name of the song, I believe, and then the camera came around to Jonathan Majors and it just zoomed in while he was saying view, and it just came right up and he looked into the camera. He actually looked into the camera. I thought that was so cool and well delivered by him as well. And in that moment you could have seen it on Nat Love's face that it's all or nothing, because he said that this is going to be Rufus Buck's last day among the living, and that was intense. But Rufus versus Nat Love, two unstoppable forces, as I mentioned earlier, two bulls in one pen. One had to go. Like, one definitely had to go. And it just shows you that with family, you have to clarify misunderstandings, talk and communicate to each other, because he's carrying this hatred for his father's and mother's killers for 20 years. Rufus is carrying the same thing. He knew that Nat would find him one day. He knew. So he had to be living, like, looking over his shoulder. And they're family, they're brothers. So it makes no sense. You may not have a disagreement and have to kill a family member like he had to do, but the damaged relationships are so sometimes like irredeemable. So it's good to just talk things out. That's one thing that I got from this movie. It's just good to talk things out, like communicate, hash it out. Don't let it get to a point where it's just so far gone, right? Especially as family, right? Like, it's not worth it. It's definitely not worth it. And the funniest scene to me was the bank robbery scene in Maysville. Like, everything about that bank robbery scene was just so funny. From getting off the horse with Cuffee, as I mentioned, to finding her weapon under her dress. The Maysville itself was literally a white town, literally and metaphorically, because it seemed like snow was falling there. All the buildings are painted white or cream or whatever, while in Redwood, all the buildings have different colors and looks vibrant. Maysville, everything is white. It's an all-white community as well. So it was just so weird, right? And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked it. And then there was a Chadwick Boseman Easter egg when they were Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, obviously, when they were walking by the train, when Cherokee Bill and Trudy was walking by the train in the beginning of the movie. Right after they stopped it, you see on the train it said C.A. Boseman, right? And that stands for Chadwick Aaron Boseman, right? And I thought that was such a cool way to just honor the memory of Chadwick Boseman. And to me, while watching this, I said to my wife, or my wife said to me, that Chadwick Boseman, it feels like Chadwick Boseman should have been in this movie. And we didn't even see the Easter egg when we said that. It just feels like Chadwick Boseman should have been in this movie, right? It just feels like he should have been in it, because He and Delroy Lindo, the guy that plays Marshall, they were both in The Five Bloods, and that's also a Netflix movie directed by Spike Lee, I believe. So they already have they have a relationship with Netflix, obviously a good relationship. So I'm not surprised if Chadwick Boseman was still here. I am sure he would have been in this movie. Maybe he would have been Nat Love, maybe he would have been Cherokee Bill, but I think I can see him being Nat Love opposite Idris Elba, right? So I'm thinking now that Chadwick Boseman has passed away, right? And he was a huge, huge actor. He was like the most famous African American actor. He's a strong black lead. He's big in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think there are so much similarities between him and Jonathan Majors. You know, they're very cool individuals, very likable, and to know Jonathan Majors is getting set to be one of the biggest African American stars in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he was in Loki. He's playing Kang the Conqueror. He's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp. No, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, yeah. As Kang the Conqueror again, and he's going to eventually be a bigger Avengers villain, I'm sure. So it seems like Jonathan Majors is about to take Chadwick Boseman's place as the leading African American guy in the MCU. All respect to Chadwick Boseman, of course, but just what I'm seeing from this movie that I watched, I can see Jonathan Majors being the next Chadwick Boseman. And I think that's very cool. I'm very happy for Jonathan Majors, and I hope it really, really works out for him. So that is my spoiler review of The Harder They Fall from Netflix. Have you seen it? Will you see it? What did you think of my review? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, my name is Cjam, and I will see you guys in the next review.